Hey guys, I have an issue with my Gen 2 stereo set with a display that is faulty. It's not because the display is broken, but it's because the polarization film is sort of damaged due to wear and tear. And as you can see, I have a set of free 3D glasses that also uses polarization, and you can choose to have a dark background with bright wording or vice versa. I would go for the bright background because that's how it was originally. You could try to peel off the original polarization film like I did over here, but I find it to be extremely difficult. So I went on to remove the stereo set by first removing the climate control panel, and I need to remove the middle armrest console as well. There's a screw here, there, and then one in the middle. Next, I need to loosen up the gear stick housing so that the middle console can be lifted up a little bit. Couple of screws to be removed. Once that's loosened up a little bit, then I can pry open the climate control panel and just give it a little pull, and it should come right off just like that. Disconnect the cables, and then I'll remove the dash buttons. Remove the connector behind. Now I can access to the stereo set by removing some screws. There are a few cables behind. Remove them. And I'll remove the front control panel. That will give me access to the screen alone, allowing me to work on the removal of the polarization film with a lot easier. Quite a number of screws to be removed here. It's not really necessary to remove that plate, but I'm removing them because they're in the way. So now I'm looking for a way to dismantle the front control panel. Couple more screws to be removed. Give it a little bit of wiggle and then there's a ribbon flex cable and another set of cables. Give it a little bit of wiggle as well, and the cable should come right off. More screws to be removed before we can access the display. Forgot another one screw there. There we go. That's the screen fully exposed. Easier for me to clean it up. Now at this stage you want to remember how was the polarization film's position, whether you want a dark background or you want a bright background. And you should remember the orientation. The left eye's polarization might be different from the right, so remember that, mark that down. So I've marked mine down, and I'll put the polarization film from the 3D glass and I'll stick it on. It's done, and we can put everything back together. Now it's time to put everything back together. I'll personally go on and test the stereo set before I put everything back together, just to make sure that I've done it correctly. So I can see the display now, everything's functioning fine, and then I'll proceed to put everything back together. Just make sure you don't have any cables clipped in between tight spaces that could damage it. Screw everything back in how it should have been. Putting the climate control panel back in, test it and see that the cable connections are okay. Just give it a little bit of a wiggle and it should pop right back in. It's time to screw back once everything is in place for the climate control panel. Make sure that the climate control is fully functioning. And yes, it is. Right. Next to the dash buttons, connect the cables up. Make sure that the cables are perfectly secured. And then give it a little bit of testing to make sure everything's fine and working. I won't be showing how to put everything back for the middle console, as is the opposite of how we have dismantled it earlier. Now with everything tested and working, that's it for how I fixed the stereo sets display. Now I've had this for a couple of years now, they're working fine, so I just want to show you a last screenshot of everything working correctly for the screen. It's looking like original, nothing wrong, and there you go, a cheap and quick fix.